Hey, so imagine if you could experience the realm people describe in near death experiences. Actually experience it, not just talk about it, hear about it, and experience it without the trauma of nearly dying. My guest today is Reverend Dr. Scott Taylor. He's the president of the Expanded Awareness Institute, where he helps people explore near death and shared death experiences and what they mean for our lives and culture. Scott has a rare gift for making the exploration of the non physical universe accessible to the curious. He's the author and voice of 6 best selling Into the Light guided meditation albums and a longtime researcher, speaker, and guide in this field. I'm so excited and I feel so lucky he's here with us today. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, we have Dr. Scott Taylor with us on the show. Dr. Scott Taylor, thank you for joining us. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm really excited to talk to you today and learning about all of the things that you're involved in as president of the Expanded Awareness Institute, EAI for short. Can you tell us a little bit about the Expanded Awareness Institute?
Thank you for having me on, Katie. I have been looking forward to our conversation, and I would love to tell you about the Expanded Awareness Institute. Thank you for that softball. I appreciate it. Expanded Awareness Institute is an organization where we look at how do we guide people, mentor people into those same experiences that people have that are that have had near-death experiences or shared death experiences. And we do that through guided meditations, backed up with binaural beats, which I find to be really helpful in having people enter into and hold expanded states of awareness. So at the Expanded Awareness Institute, we have exercises that you can do on your own, just buy albums off of the internet. And then I do courses principally on the Shift network. And they tend to run either 7 weeks for an introductory course or 12 weeks for an advanced course. And there we explore quite extensively how to enter into that vibratory level that is the afterlife. And then we give you tools and techniques to navigate around that space. So it's a much more pleasant adventure than if you were to have a near-death experience, which, I have people sometimes will come up after I talk and they'll say, Scott, that's just amazing. I really wish I could have a near-death experience. And, I grab them by the collar and go, no, no, because that involves typically such trauma to the human body that it dies.
Right.
And you've got to recover and heal, and then you have to deal with what the hell was that? In near-death experiences, when they list the common elements, usually the very first one on all of these lists is that it's ineffable, which is a great English word, which means we don't have a great English word for what happened. So people are living their normal life and they have a baby or a car accident or a heart attack or something, and this fast they are thrown into an environment that they had no idea existed. They don't know what to do there. All of a sudden there's, dead relatives and divine beings or this loving black light. They're overwhelmed and they're paralyzed, some of them, and they just don't know what to do. When you use guided meditations, you could learn, to enter into these states gradually, and you learn tools along the way. So when something happens, you go, oh, divine being, hi. I have a really cool thing that I'd like to ask you about, or I'd like to do, or I'd like to go visit. And you begin to realize that we as human beings are incredibly powerful human beings. We have so so much potential that we can we can co-create our experiences both here in the physical world and in the non-physical world. And so that's what we teach people at the Expanded Awareness Institute is how do we become co-creators in our life and begin to realize what our true potential is as humans and not take some of the cultural boundaries that have been placed on us and say, we can go beyond that. So
I, I
again, thank you, Katie, for having me on. That was a long answer. Sorry.
no, that's wonderful. It's great because I'm trying to put myself in maybe some of the listeners' shoes and, because a year or so ago, I wouldn't have even known or realized that there's this whole that I could even get to have an experience like that, past, that my consciousness like can live past this body, as far as and then come back and be, without having to experience a near death experience.
So, see, there's one of these cultural things that is just completely upside down, it's completely backwards, which is that our consciousness resides within the brain. It is a product of the brain. It is not. Our consciousness exists within our energetic body, our soul body, whatever you want to call it, that inhabits this physical body for a while. And then when the physical body, wears out, it then goes back and plays in the non physical universe again. So, what the human brain isn't the originator of consciousness, it's the filter, it's the antenna. It's what reaches out and says, "Oh, Scott, you want to be able to direct this body, you want to be able to lift your hand, you want to take your glasses off. I can make that happen."
Hmm.
So it's the brain that translates the instructions from the non-physical into this physical body. And so we can be here in this physical world and and reside within it effectively. So again, it was just backwards. Our consciousness resides within our non-physical body, which it inhabits us, here while we're here. And it's also, then it becomes the explanation for out of body experiences is
Hmm.
easy because you can just say, well, I decided to take a break and go tool around either the physical or the non physical universe and, have some sort of an adventure. And then when I'm done, I go, okay, come back to the physical. I mean, every night our non physical body leaves our physical body and does something. Sometimes
Hmm.
we remember it like in a lucid dream, and, very often we don't, just because we're, sleeping heavily.
Yeah.
And, but it happens all the time. So this idea that we have this ability is innate. It is part of how we are constructed. And I love that because it explains so much about what our experiences have been. People try to explain near death experiences and shared death and lucid dreaming and out of body. All of those are entirely consistent with the idea that consciousness resides within the non physical body.
And so part of what your institute is doing is showing people through these guided meditations, which you voice these, is it 6 albums that you've done?
I have
Um,
6 albums that are available publicly, and I probably have 40 exercises that I've done through my courses at the Shift Network. And so it's, yeah, a lot more of me is there than is
uh-huh.
available publicly, but that's okay. Those 6 are great. They work really well.
And Yeah, I can attest to those binaural beats. I've tried some guided meditations with HemiSync, which I know you work with,
Hmm.
and especially your experience 35 years as a facilitator at the Monroe Institute, and then you were also president and executive director for a number of years there. You have all of this experience with HemiSync, binaural beats, and understanding how those guided meditations can truly take people, you know, into that space to
Well,
experience this for themselves.
yeah, what we know about binaural beats is that the way they're constructed, it changes the vibratory level of both our physical and our non-physical bodies. And based on the different frequency mixes that are used, we can go into the different vibratory states that, for me, I'm interested in, like the near death experiences, where, okay, what I'm talking about here is there's a vibratory rate that is really good for leaving the physical body. And and if we can raise our vibratory up through using headphones, and it's just a lot easier to step out. And of course, that would be the spot where when people are having their final transition or a near death experience, they lift up out of their body. Typically, there's an escort there to help take them through the tunnel and into the light. And so there's a frequency level for that lift off. There's a frequency for the tunnel. There's another one for the reunion where
Mm-hmm.
we meet our dead relatives and friends and pets in the white light. But people also have experiences with other places there. White light is a common experience, but there's also clear light and black light, which are different frequency levels, and they are much different experiences than you might have read about. There's a frequency level for where we meet divine beings, and this is the part that I think is fascinating, is that our home away from home, our life between lives, is a place that near-death experiencers call the park. And, you know, it's where we go when we leave this physical body. Now, the cool thing is that Bob Monroe, his whole deal was about out of body experiences, and he has a cosmology of the non physical universe that's particularly his, and he describes this area of life between lives, and he named it the park. Near death experiencers with a whole different cosmology describe the non physical universe, and their description of the place where we live and life after life, they call it the park.
Isn't that interesting?
And so, two different lenses, two really different approaches to the non physical world, both describe that area of our life between lives the same way, and they called it the same term. And it's just, well, of course that would happen. I mean, if we're really investigating the non physical world, it would just make sense that people would discover the same things, and maybe they call them the same way or maybe they don't. But in this case, this rather large place and truly important to where we're going is both identified and named the park. It's like that. It's a park like setting, which makes it very comfortable for us to go back to and enjoy and return.
Oh, I have so many questions. I'm trying to squeeze them all in. So, for people listening who have not experienced the albums that you do and the guided meditations, what we're talking about when we say binaural beats and hemisync, can you explain how that works, that technology works for?
Sure. A little story. Bob Monroe, back in the 1950s, started having spontaneous out of body experiences. Now, he's a Methodist from Virginia, and it, he had absolutely no background. He thought when he lifted out of his spine that his physical body was dying, that and so he had himself all checked out, and he was fine, other than he smoked too much. So these out of body experiences, he fought them for a long time, and then finally he said, "Well, if I'm fine, and these experiences are happening to me, and I seem to be fine afterwards, what if I changed up the scenario and I go with it instead of fighting it and resisting it? Let's find out where this thing is going to take me." And thus, he launched decades long of research, and he wrote about it. And a friend of his took that book to a publisher, or took his notes to a publisher, and thus Journeys Out of the Body, the very first book about out of body experiences, landed on the market, and it was a huge hit, huge. And people just bombarded him with this idea of, I want to do what you do. I want to know what you know. I don't want to read any more books. I want to experience it. And so he created an institute, the Monroe Institute, to do this. But he needed something to help facilitate this state of expansion, because it was too hit or miss just by doing it with sitting and doing meditation. He found a really old technology dating back to the late 1800s called binaural beats. And essentially what binaural beats are is, if you put a tone in one ear, say 100 hertz, and you put a slightly different tone in the other ear, say 104 hertz, the body tries to equalize those two, because that's our natural state of echolocation. It's how we figure out where things are in the physical world. So if there's a sound that's happening over here, it comes at me, wraps around my head, and it enters both ears. And what we do is we turn our head, both sounds are equalized, ta-da, and I know that there's a tiger in the grass over there. Well, if you're wearing headphones, you can't equalize the two. It's impossible. They can't be equal because they're inherently not. What happens then is that the brain naturally sets up a third tone all on its own for the difference between the two. So in my example, 100 hertz, 104 hertz, the difference is 4. And Katie, if I did that to you right now, your headphones, put those two tones in, you would be deeply asleep. It is the frequency of deep sleep, and off you would go. Your physical body and your non-physical body start to vibrate at that 4 hertz, and away you go. Well, he thought, that's really cool. Here's Bob's genius. He said, well, what if we mixed them? Because I know that 12 hertz is where we are right now, bright, awake, clear consciousness. What if we mixed the two, and we give you 4, and then we give you 12? So he had this state, which he famously called Focus 10, which is mind bright, awake, and clear, body asleep. Mind awake, body asleep. And that frequency is what he used for all of his out-of-body explorations. And it was the perfect thing to help train people how to get into a deeply, deeply relaxed state, but their mind still is awake and clear. And so they can, when they lift out of their physical body, like you do at night, we talked about that before, it's just a natural thing that you would raise your energy and then lift out of your physical body. Now, there's a little more to it than that, but essentially, that's what we're talking about. And those stages of of near-death experiences, like where you meet your relatives and divine beings in that area of the park, those are all different mixes that we've been able to identify using binaural beats. Hemisync was the first one. It's terrific. It's really effective. And there have been others that have taken off on that. I use another one that's very similar to Hemisync, but it's got slightly different blends because I'm going different places than where they go in the
Right.
Monroe network. And then there's a bunch of crappy ones out there. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's some that are just really harsh
Hmm.
and they feel like they're blasting you into some place. And no, it doesn't have to be like that. This is a gentle transition, and what you begin to realize is that vibratory change isn't that much because we have access to that non-physical world all the time. And so what we're doing is training ourselves how to shift our focus from here in the physical world to there where my dead relatives are, or that area of the park where my counsels and advisors and that
Right.
sort of thing where they
I
hang out.
I wish so much that more people knew about this opportunity that they could take on to, because there are so many people who have lost their loved ones. They're grieving. They've grieved for so many years, but they don't realize that there there is a possibility that they could connect with them in this way.
Yeah,
Um, and I think a part of it is just the fear when they hear about, you know, something that they've never heard of, having some sort of out of body experience. It's scary to them, or they've heard too many people say, "Oh, bad things can happen," or this and that, and it's simply not true.
it's simply not true. What near-death experiencers begin to realize is that what some forms of a religion have taught us is that we are born of original sin and that we are somehow less than and that we have something we have to prove to somebody, a tribunal or something. And it's not true. We are born of original blessing. We are composed of the very stuff that is the source of everything. We are composed of that loving consciousness that is the physical world. And frankly, there is no difference between us and those divine beings. We're made up of the same stuff. So when we leave our physical bodies, frankly, and while we inhabit them here in the physical world, there is no separation from the divine. We just need to take down the filters that have been placed there by maybe an agreement that we came into the physical world, or by our culture that says, "Oh no, you can't have access to the divine except through somebody in a robe." Near death experiencers and shared death experiencers have such wonderful stories to tell us about how blessed we are and how we are so loved because we have chosen to enter into this physical world to play out what love means in the physical. And that's not a great description, but the point of this is that we are made up of love. It's no different than an ocean that has waves on the top. We're like the waves, they're they form, they do their thing, and then they disappear back into the ocean again. It's exactly the same for us. We are made up of that ocean of love. And for a little bit we're a wave and then we fall right back into it, but we are never ever separated from that. We don't, we are always made up of that ocean of love. Always. And we can't be separated from it. We are it. And so back to the thing that fear is misplaced. And that's what I like about doing this work is when people finally get it, they go, really? I don't have to be afraid? I said, no. And on top of that, our guides, our better angels, our whatever, there's so much help on the other side. And I mean, they're looking out after us all the time. So if we feel lost or if we're, trying to navigate, they're right there. It's like, yeah, Scott, do you want to turn left or right? Katie says you want to go left. So, all right, so we go left. It's an extraordinary thing to realize that we are already evolved, ascended beings. We just have to rest for a moment and sink back into what that means. And we are guided, we are led, we are loved. It's all the pressure is gone when once you realize, hey, you know what? I'm just cool all by myself.
Yeah.
I'm just doing fine, thank you. And whatever this next adventure that the physical world has for it, great.
Yeah.
Because I'll be guided. It'll be just fine. And then off you go.
And your background, I mean, you didn't start out just, growing up and knowing all these things. I mean, you had
God no.
you yeah, tell us about how you got into this. I know you have had a shared death two shared death experiences,
Two.
right?
We got time for one. How about that?
That's great, and I know some people, they've only heard of the near death experience. We haven't really talked much on this show about shared death experiences yet. So, yeah, go ahead, tell us.
All right. So yeah, I'll tell you my story and then I'll use that as an example for what a shared death experience is. It was 1981, and I'm in love with Mary Frances. And she and her son, Nolan, who just turned 7, are coming back from a day of sailing on Lake Washington in beautiful southern Minnesota. It's where I grew up. Small town. I was raised Presbyterian, so that's my worldview. Mary Fran and Nolan are coming home, and they're involved in a horrific car accident. Mary Fran is killed outright, and Nolan takes 6 days to make his transition. Luckily, we, living in southern Minnesota, both Mary Fran and Nolan were immediately taken to the Mayo Health System in Rochester, finest medical facility in the world, and there Nolan remained in a coma for 6 days. Mary Fran was one of 9, and because Nolan hung on for those 6 days, all of her family had time to gather in Rochester, and it was quite a crew because there's boyfriends and girlfriends and spouses and uncles and aunts and and grandmas and grandpas, and that's just her side of the family, and then there's my side of the family. So we had a lot of people there, 40 to 50 of us that were in this small little waiting room holding vigil with Nolan. Nolan was in a small hospital room, and so as a result, 2 of us of that group went in every 2 hours just to be with him. And my turn was on the morning of the 6th day from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. And I went in with Mary Fran's oldest sister, Jannie, and Jannie and I brought storybooks. We read him his favorite stories. We told him about what we told him about his uncles who at midnight would go out into the Mayo Hospital, and they'd steal all the cushions off of the couches, and they put them on the floor of the waiting room so that there could be we can have a place to lie down and just be more comfortable as we're there. It was very important that we do this, that we were there. The nurse on the floor had told us that the very last sense to go is the sense of hearing. So even though Nolan was in a coma and wasn't responsive to us, the nurse was pretty sure that he could still hear us. And so when Janny and I were there, we did things that he liked to do, and he would think his home. And it gets to be about 4:45 in the morning, and Janny, who is a trained emergency room nurse, took a look at the charts at the end of his bed, and she looked up at the monitors that were surrounding him, taking his vital signs, and she looked at me and says, "Scott, I think it's time that we say our goodbyes." And so we pulled up chairs next to his head, and we told him that he had been an incredibly brave young boy, and he has been fighting so hard. It was 6 days he's been fighting to stay alive just to be with us. And then Janny told him something really profound, which was, Nolan, if your mother, reminder that she died 6 days before at the scene of the car crash, if your mother should come and ask you to go with her, you should do that. If your mother comes to pick you up, you should go with her. And we told him how much he meant to us and how much we loved him and how much he would always be a part of our heart. And then it's now 6:00, so we leave and the next crew comes in. About 45 minutes later, the nurse on the floor comes in and says, his vital signs are dropping rapidly. It looks like the end is near. So this whole crew gets up and we file our way out of the waiting room and into his small hospital room. And as it turns out, I was one of the last ones in line. And so when I got there, it was already 4 deep around the bed. And I thought, well, this is silly. I'm just going to go sit on the windowsill next to Willie, which was Mary Fran's youngest brother. And we just waited. And, all there is to do in that room is, just kind of be silent and hold vigil. And then, just watch the monitors, his heart monitor. And eventually, it flatlines and it does that ominous tone. At that point, what I experienced was Mary Fran coming across the veil, and she scoops Nolan up out of his physical body, and the two of them have this exquisite reunion, as you can only imagine, between a mother and son. And it surprised me, Katie. It was because it felt like I was there, part of that reunion. And then the two of them turned to me, came over and embraced me, and then the three of us left and went into the light. And that experience of being in the light was so extraordinary. I mean, it's overwhelming in terms of its love and compassion and acceptance. There was joy and ecstasy and and reunion, not only with Mary Fran and Nolan, but like reunion with the source. I mean, it's a lot for a boy in small town Minnesota. But really, none of that made any difference, because what was important to me was I was there with Mary Fran and Nolan, and I got to be with them. I had a chance we had a chance to affirm our love and connection with each other. We also had a chance to say goodbye because I was at work when the accident happened, so I wasn't anywhere near there. And then we had a chance just to be together. And when that felt complete, Mary Fran and Nolan turned and they went further into the light, and I remained in the light for just a moment and then came back to my physical body. So that's part A of the story. There's 3 parts to this. So do you have any questions so far?
I I guess one thing when that happened, which I think you'll get to on your own, is just the not, knowing anything about any of this before and then having this incredible experience happen to you, how you took that after, which I think you'll get to. So I'll just let you go from there.
Okay, part B of the story is that I'm in the light with Mary Fran and Nolan. They go further in, and I come back to my physical body. And what I realize is that 100% of my consciousness was with them in the non-physical world. And 100% of my consciousness was there in the room on the windowsill next to Willie. And I describe it like that because it didn't feel like it was a 50-50 split. It felt like I was all there and all on the windowsill. I was completely present in both locations. And I know this because as I was sitting there on the windowsill, it was like the loving light of the universe was inside my physical body and trying to burst out. And it meant that my face was, it was just so filled with joy and love that this ecstasy that was trying to come out, I just had this huge grin and this amazing glow. And if anybody in the room had looked at me right then, it would have been entirely inappropriate because Mary Fran had died 6 days before and Nolan had just passed away. And here I am, just in this state of bliss. So I did the only thing I could think of, which was to cover my face with my hands. And then when that other part came back and I felt kind of integrated, I could lower my hands and I could be there in the room with all of the other grieving relatives and do what you do. You hug, you cry on each other's shoulders, and you're present for each other, in this moment of extraordinary grief. So that's part B. I didn't know what to do with this. This is to your point. The lexicon of the Presbyterian Church has nothing to say about people coming across the veil and being able to communicate with you. You get to share their experience. You get to be in 2 locations at the same time. It was so outside of anything that I could have imagined, let alone experienced, that I just didn't tell anybody for a long time. So fast forward this is part C, fast forward about 15 years, and I'm at the University of St. Thomas, and I made a commitment to writing my final dissertation about near-death experiences and what that means. And I'm trying to find people to interview, and I'm having a really difficult time because I'm asking the wrong people. I'm asking hospitals and hospices and nursing homes, and they all have the same answer, which is, God, we'd love to help you out, but there's this thing called HIPAA. We just can't tell you that kind of information. Talk to Fred, he died. It just, so one of the things I did to find people to interview was I sent a letter to all of Mary Fran's sisters. They all wound up in healthcare in some flavor or another. And one of them wrote me back and said, "Hey, Scott, not too long ago, I had a near death experience. Do you want to interview me?" Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we got together and I had the recorder out and my questions, and she told me her story, which is lovely. And then as we finish up and I'm packing up my gear, this thought comes into my head, which was when Nolan made his final transition, something really unusual happened to me. And I wonder if something unusual happened to you. And Mary Fran's sister looked at me and her eyes just got as big as saucers. Taking that as a yes, I said, "Hold on." I turned on the tape recorder and I said, "Tell you what, why don't you tell me your experience first? Then I'll tell you mine and then we'll compare notes." So, Katie, this is what she told me. She said, "I remember this like it was yesterday." Said, "I was standing bedside on on one side of the bed, and you were on the other side of the room, sitting on the windowsill next to Willie." I said, "Yep, that's exactly right." And she said, "When Nolan flatlined, what I experienced, I meaning the sister, she said, what I experienced was Mary Fran coming across the veil, scooping Nolan up out of his physical body. The two of them had this exquisite reunion in which I was able to participate. The two of them then came to me, embraced me, and we went into the light where we had a chance to affirm our love and connection for each other. We had a chance to say a proper goodbye, to be together. And then they turned and left and went further into the light, and I came back to the room. It was almost exactly word for word as I've described my experience to you. We had exactly the same experience at at the time of Nolan's passing. So now what happened to me was called a shared death experience because I didn't have any physical trauma. I just went with Nolan and Mary Fran into the light. But I guess you could call this a shared death experience. Is the sister and I had the same experience. What
Wow.
resulted from that was in an instant, if I had any doubts about the research I was doing or what had happened to me, gone.
That
Just
that just confirmed it.
completely confirmed it. And the same for the sister. She had been for 15 years wondering what this was and how. I mean, she was raised Catholic, so there's a little more mystical tradition there. But if you're an everyday Catholic, you don't tend to bump into that a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, it confirmed for her absolutely that what had happened was real, and that she could embrace that and have that be part of her life. And as tragic as it was, it's also a gift that we had that exposure to the light, that we had a chance to be with Mary Fran and Nolan and say goodbye. Something that is really quite extraordinary. Less so now because we know about it. We know how to kind of set that up if we want. So that's my story in three parts.
It really makes you wonder how many people have these shared death experiences and just don't talk about them or,
A lot.
you know,
Well, the statistics for near death experience, something like 5 to 10% of the entire population of the planet has had a near death experience. That's a near death experience, one with the whole physical trauma and leaving and coming back.
hmm
And shared death it's so much less invasive, I guess, and it happens in a number of different ways. It can happen like mine, where I'm having this bilocation, this split in consciousness. It happens really frequently in hypnagogic states or dream states, that area between sleep and wakefulness, you know, it's a different frequency. And so, great Aunt Mary can come and visit us a lot more easily if we're in that state or in a dream state, because that's a different vibratory rate. And yeah, I'm with you. I think this happens over and over again. And we now know that we can actually arrange for this to happen. Let me take 2 seconds and do that.
Yeah.
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 So,
That's what I was going to say is, I mean, that's kind of what launched you into this, right? I mean,
yeah,
which to me
exactly.
is like, it was really touching because, you think about a love story, and somebody who would cross the ends of the earth for you, to reach the other side, and I mean,
Well,
but
it's true because when I came out of my experience, I knew every fiber in my being said, if I have done this once, I can do it again. I just have to figure out how. And I went all over the world. I mean, I didn't, again, I'm a Presbyterian, small town Minnesota. What do you do? Well, I figured out there's these ancient religious sites all over the world, and maybe there's some special juju that's still there that will, propel you into these places. So, I went to the pyramids and Sphinx and Machu Picchu and the Oracle of Delphi and Stonehenge and more cathedrals than you could shake a stick at. And essentially, what I had was a incredible series of vacations. Yeah, maybe a little something here and there. I got a glimpse of it, but there wasn't anything that helped propel me until I found out about the Monroe Institute and got to experience binaural beats. And the very first class that I had a visit from Mary Fran. And the second class I took from them, I actually established a relationship with Mary Fran and Nolan and a bunch of my other relatives that yeah, it still exists to this day. That we have this, yeah, they're, it's still available to me.
right.
Nolan's like right there, so it's it's an amazing thing to realize that you can do this. Now, to get back to my point, which is
Hmm.
William Peters wrote, or he is like the lead researcher on shared death experiences, and he wrote this beautiful book called At Heaven's Door. And what he says in there is that if you would like to experience a shared death, if you would like to go with a loved one when they make their final transition, first off, there has to be a heart connection,
Hmm.
like there would be with Mary Fran or Nolan for me. There was a strong heart connection. Two is that you need to be open and available, meaning, I was just sitting on a windowsill watching the heart monitor, so there's nothing going on. I'm not driving, I'm not in conversation, I'm not actively grieving. I was open and available.
Hmm.
And then the third thing, which I think is kind of cool, is that you set up ahead of time a an agreement. And it goes like this. So my wife, Ann, and me, if we made this agreement that if she goes first, I would like to go with her. And we have agreed that, a pivotal moment in our lives, our shared life together, was when we met on the corner of 11th and LaSalle in downtown Minneapolis. And in my life review or in her life review, when that incident happens, that's a trigger to say, reach back, grab Scott, and have him experience what I'm experiencing. The key to this is the person who's making the transition, like Nolan, like Mary Fran, reaches back into the physical and invites that person with them.
Mhm.
And it doesn't work so well the other way around, principally because Mary Fran and Nolan were already at that vibratory state, and all they had to do was touch me, and I would begin to resonate at the same frequency they were. And
Mhm.
so it was easy to lift out. If it's reversed, I'm trying to guess. So what frequency are they at? Pick one. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you do that? So it's the person who's non-physical reaches back to the person who's physical and makes that invitation. And essentially, that's what we do with my guided meditations is we say we know what this frequency is, and we can set up binaural beats to mimic that, and so we can put you into that space of the tunnel, or where you meet where you have the reunion, where you meet the dead relatives, and then it's about intention after that. We can put you into that space, and then you can learn.
Yeah. Do you know anything about reincarnation? That's something that I've kind of come to, just accept, or I feel like it's a, it's a likely thing, right? To happen, although that's not what my religion growing up taught me. And I know that's not what a lot of people believe, but I guess how would I, like, if the person that I wanted to see, if they passed on,
Mm-hmm.
uh, how would I still see them if, they maybe had already passed into a reincarnation? Is it something about what I've heard where we still have our higher consciousness there in that place all the time?
Yes, that is true. However, there's an easier explanation, which is when we enter into the non physical universe, we enter into a universe that is outside of time and space. Time is not linear there. And so you can go back any time you want and meet that relative, and they will be there. And, and be, okay, so here I'm going to bend your mind, Katie. You ready?
I'm
This is
ready.
worth the price of admission right here.
Yes.
Because there is no time in that space, it means that all of the lives that we are living are happening simultaneously from the view of that space. So if we are living 1,000 lives, they're all happening at the same time. And so we can actually come back and forth and reunite with anybody that we want, anytime that we want. And it also means that we can share wisdom across lives. So if I'm a Roman soldier, back in 400 BC, that life can inform this life right now. What we have to do is just hit come to the same vibration and exchange. And there's techniques to do that work really well. So not to worry. So if you want to go see Grandma Jenny, she's there,
Hmm.
and you can hook into Grandma Jenny, and she'll tell you everything you need to know, or exchange ideas with you, or whatever. It's just lovely. Case in point, Nolan and I meet on a regular basis. There's a park bench that's in the park
Hmm.
where when I go and sit on the bench, that's the invitation for him to come. And he'll sit down on that bench, and sometimes he'll be 7, just like he was when he made his transition. Sometimes he'll be 30, sometimes he'll be 50, sometimes he'll be 80.
Wow.
Because it really, how he shows up depends on what it is we're going to talk about. One time in particular that I remember quite vividly, he shows up and he's in his mid 30s and he's dressed in a black suit, skinny black tie, white shirt, kind of, and it feels to me like it's in the late 50s. Kind of get that vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells me that he has a job that is like being a U.S. Marshal. And in the line of duty, he has had to kill someone. And it's tearing him up inside that he took a human life. Now, he's been trained. This is what you do. This is how you handle a firearm. It wasn't an accident. It was in the line of duty, and it was, everything was by the book. But at the same time, it was something that he wanted to talk to me about. And just to share who he was in that lifetime, which he was living now. And so that experience kind of blew the doors off of what is possible. Who else can I visit?
Mm-hmm.
And and how does that work? That I can talk to somebody who's living a parallel life in another timeline. Now it starts to play with your brain. Like, oh dear, I'm sure equipped. I can figure out how to move beyond time and space. it's a tough one. But the point is that what's important, I think, is that we are open to the experiences that are available to us, that we can remove some of the limits on our thinking. And as soon as we do that, all of a sudden, we are closer to being who we really are. And that's a lovely thing.
Mm-hmm. If people want to find out more about how they can do this, how they can look into this, and maybe, I sure hope people listening, if they've been missing their loved ones or they want to just experience what it's like for, that wonderful light and, the experiences that indie ears have without, like you said, the trauma,
Yeah.
then they can find you in your website, which I'll sure share in the notes. But
Yeah, that frankly, thank you for mentioning that because it's the easiest place for somebody to get a hold of me.
mhm,
All my email stuff is there. The classes on the Shift Network are there. My albums are there. You can, there's 6 of them. Pick one. It doesn't make a difference. Just whatever your interests are. And it's like $25. It's not a big investment, and you can try
yeah,
it out
yeah,
and see if it's for you, and if that is something that you'd like to happen. They come with a rather extensive book, I guess, like a mini book, kind of
hmm
explaining how to do things and do them well, and yeah, and they're good. I like them.
I'm I can say I'm excited to try them. I'm definitely going to be trying them. And I know anybody listening, if you go to try it, the best ways to do guided meditations, these albums that you have and the exercises is really with like headphones, right? Or
Yep.
some type of earbuds. I mean, just simply playing it in the room is not
It
great. You need to be able to hear those
it's
tones,
okay.
right?
I often do it without headphones.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, as long as it's stereo. Of course, I've been doing it for 40 years now. So, as soon as I hear that binaural beat, I'm there. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're learning, I mean, the first 10 years I taught this stuff. I did it with speakers in hotel conference rooms. So I know it works and it works really well. However, I'm with you. Headphones provides this lovely closed-in experience. The music that's on there is beautiful, so you can hear that really clearly. And I just find it to be a way to get rid of the distractions that are around there, and you can just be with yourself doing this exercise. So you can do it either way. Just don't do it in a car.
Right.
Like nothing like leaving your physical body while you're tooling down the highway. Bad
However,
plan. Really
r-
bad plan.
really bad plan. Don't do that. But
Don't do it.
however, it, they can listen to you on your podcast, which I just discovered and I love it. So it's on I subscribe to it and follow it now, the Afterlife Files. And so it's available on YouTube. It's available on Apple, right? Apple
Hmm.
Podcasts. Anywhere else?
Spotify, yeah,
Spotify.
all of them. I like, well, YouTube's easy to find me. The Afterlife Files or Scott Taylor, The Afterlife
I
Files.
love the name of the podcast, by the way, because I mean, I was
Those
an
are,
X-Files fan, so
see, that's where I got it from.
I love that. And it's
It's like,
perfect. And I love that that you go through, it's not just focused all about what we talked about today, but so many different things.
well, what happens is that we who've had shared death or near death experience or even a spiritually transformative experience, it redefines what the world is. And a lot of that is involved with the after effects. And so, season one, typically I had near death stories and near death researchers. I had a lot of those folks on. And then season two, which we're just wrapping up, is about the after effects. So, what does that mean? And so people come back and they're mediums, and other people come back and they do pendulums or out of body experiences or remote viewing, or there's so many things that are enhanced when we come back from these experiences. People are like, oh my word, this is amazing. And anyway, so I think season two kind of blows the doors off of what we think is real. There's a lot more to our reality and to us. We are really capable of extraordinary things that aren't in our collective consciousness. Yeah.
And so many people just don't realize it yet. They just don't. But
But
it's just go and try it for yourself and see what happens, right? I
yeah,
mean,
go try it, see what happens. And yeah, it's really fun. And what I like about binaural beats is that you can go there so much faster. You don't have to sit in front of a brick wall for 7 years in order to have these kinds of experiences. You can have them right away because the binaural beats literally change the frequency of your physical and your non-physical body. So if you have the intention to visit the tunnel, for instance, it's quite an extraordinary structure. Like, what's in there? You know, I, it could be a passage from here to the light, but what else is there? Well, it's filled with all kinds of stuff. So it's like, go for it. Check it out.
yeah. So, like I said, I'll put notes for people to be able to find you. I'll put these notes available so that they can. But can you tell us real quick just the best places to find you at the website. And
Yep, to go to near-death-meditations.com. So there's a plural there, near-death-meditations.com. And all my stuff is there. So you can find me then easily, or
and
send me a
then
note, whatever. Great.
yeah, that's wonderful. And the Afterlife Files podcast too, which I'm going to keep listening to. So I hope you keep doing this work that you're doing, Dr. Taylor, because I mean, I'm sure you've heard already some success stories, lots of success stories through people who have tried the things
Yep.
that you've done. And so that's the part that keeps you going, isn't it? I mean, to be
We
able to
just we
connect.
just wrapped up an introductory class on bilocation for the Shift Network,
Hmm.
and they send surveys out afterwards, and they were fabulous. I just got tears in my eyes.
Oh,
People cruising around the non-physical and meeting dead relatives and becoming at peace with who what that transition will look like for them. And
that is life changing right there. I mean, those those things alone, just if somebody could experience that for themselves, life changing in so many different ways. So, yeah, and go ahead.
I was just gonna. That sounded like Katie. It's really been a pleasure to be on your show. It had that wrap
Yes.
up feel to
Yes,
it.
that's where I was getting at. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so very much for taking the time today and being on my little show, and it's just been wonderful to talk to you. So, thank you again from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story. I hope people will go back and visit your site, your website, and find, see how it helps them. I know I'm going to, so I'll let you know. I will send
Thank-
you how it goes for me. So,
Thanks, Katie. We had fun.
yeah, we
Yay.
did. We did. All right. Thank you so much, Scott. I want to thank Dr. Scott Taylor for this conversation and the work he's doing to make the exploration of consciousness more accessible. Near death and shared death experiences raise questions we often don't slow down enough to ask, and maybe the answers matter more than we realize. So, as listeners, thank you so much for being here and spending the time today. I hope that you'll join us next time. Please feel free to share your thoughts. Would love to hear from you. And I'll see you next time.